Some men don't live for the things you can see. They live for the things you'll never truly grasp. Every man says he'd die for something: family, love, wealth, or status. But here's the twist: studies reveal that over 85% of people's so-called core values aren't even their own. They're borrowed, handed down by culture, peers, or society's expectations. In other words, most men would literally die for someone else's script, not their own. And then, there are the Sigma males. These men don't chase the usual trophies of life. They're wired differently, drawn to pursuits so unconventional that, from the outside, they often appear irrational, even insane. While most men die trying to belong, Sigma males would die protecting things most people don't even notice. This is where it gets fascinating, and a little ironic. Because while the average man might sacrifice himself for a Rolex, a luxury car, or the approval of strangers he secretly resents, the Sigma male would die for something like the freedom to disappear without explanation. Today, we're diving into the strange, unsettling, and brutally honest things Sigma males would actually die for. Fair warning, some will make perfect sense, others will make you laugh nervously, but all of them will remind you that Sigma males are playing an entirely different game. Number 1, the sacred escape of being unseen. The rare moment of being truly unwatched is something most people don't even realize they long for. But for a Sigma male, it's sacred. In a world where eyes are always on you, whether it's strangers watching, social media tracking, or algorithms recording every click, the simple act of existing without an audience feels revolutionary. For him, it's not just about privacy, it's about dignity. He refuses to let every gesture become data, every thought dissected, or every move compared against someone else's highlight reel. What he craves is that invisible space where nobody is judging, nobody is waiting for a performance, and nobody expects him to be anything but himself. That moment is oxygen. And it doesn't come from insecurity, but from strength. Unlike those who constantly chase validation, the Sigma male knows that being watched bends you, even in ways you don't notice. You speak differently when recorded. You laugh differently when you know someone is listening. You even think differently when your words can be replayed, screenshot, or twisted out of context. Living under constant eyes makes true authenticity impossible. And authenticity is the one thing he will never sacrifice. To him, freedom isn't the car he drives, the house he owns, or the money he makes. True freedom is the ability to breathe without being observed. It could be as simple as walking down a street where no one knows his name, or sitting in silence without a single expectation tied to his presence. That's when his mind comes alive. That's when his soul feels untouchable. The irony? While most men would give everything to be seen, Sigma males would give everything to not be seen. The crowd fights for attention, he fights for invisibility. And if you think about it, that's power in its rawest form, to exist without being a product, a role, or a performance for others. It's the kind of power no one can take away, because it doesn't depend on anyone else. He would die for that sacred invisibility. Not because he hates the world, but because he values the one thing the world is desperate to destroy, the right to exist without an audience. That fleeting, private moment of freedom is worth everything. Number 2, the right to choose his pain. Pain is one of life's unavoidable currencies, everyone pays it, whether they like it or not. But while most people spend their lives running from it or pretending it doesn't exist, the Sigma male does something different. He insists on choosing his own pain. That choice is everything to him. To have suffering forced onto him by manipulation, shallow obligations, or society's rules feels like theft. But to step into pain willingly, on his own terms, gives him a sense of ownership no one can take away. He doesn't mind scars, but they'd better be scars he earned, not ones handed to him by someone else's expectations. This is why he rejects the traditional path society lays out, the soul-draining job he doesn't believe in, the loveless relationship built on convenience, or the pursuit of hollow trophies that leave him empty. To him, that's someone else deciding what pain he should endure. And nothing feels more suffocating. If he's going to bleed, it must be for something that matters to him, for something that builds him even as it breaks him. To others, that may look reckless. But to him, it's survival. He sees honor in it. Where most view pain as punishment, he sees it as a forge. He knows every wound reshapes him, every sacrifice sharpens him, and every struggle defines him more than victories ever could. But the power of pain vanishes the moment it's chosen for him. This isn't about ego, it's about integrity. He'd rather endure brutal, bone-deep suffering for his own cause than live in shallow comfort dictated by someone else. This is why he cannot be controlled. You can tempt him, threaten him, or pressure him, but if the pain isn't his to choose, he'll walk away, no matter the cost. The Sigma male doesn't run from pain, and he doesn't bow to it. He bends it to his will. In the end, everyone suffers, but only he insists that his suffering must reflect his own choices. If he must burn, then the fire will be one he lit himself. And for him, that freedom is worth dying for. Number 3, mastery over his exit. For a Sigma male, control over his exit is sacred. It's not simply about slipping out of a crowded room unnoticed or walking away from a relationship that has outlived its purpose. It runs far deeper than that. To him, the right to leave, on his terms, at his timing, is a declaration of sovereignty. It's his final act of authorship in any situation, the punctuation mark he alone decides to place. That's why he resists being trapped or cornered. The moment someone tries to cage him, through authority, obligation, or emotional manipulation, his instincts ignite. He would rather burn the entire situation to ashes than remain where his presence is no longer chosen. For most people, leaving is terrifying because it signals uncertainty. For him, staying against his will is far more terrifying, because it means surrendering his freedom. This need for exit control extends far beyond daily life. He doesn't live under the illusion that anything lasts forever: jobs, friendships, love, even life itself. He knows everything has an expiration date. What matters to him is not stretching things past their natural course but departing on his own terms. That's why he'll sacrifice comfort, reputation, or even safety if it means preserving that autonomy. For him, staying in a love that has soured, clinging to a career that bleeds his spirit, or dragging out a chapter just because it's expected, that's worse than death. He won't let anyone else dictate how or when his story closes. Outsiders might see this as cold, selfish, or ruthless. But to him, it's simple: beginnings don't define him, endings do. If he cannot choose his exits, then he doesn't truly own the life in between. That principle is so sacred, he'd rather die defending it than live surrendering it. Number 4, the untamed edge of chaos. Most people spend their lives building fences against chaos. They crave predictability, neat routines, and tidy boundaries to keep life from spiraling out of control. But Sigma males are different. They aren't addicted to recklessness, nor are they driven by foolish thrill-seeking. Instead, they feel an almost magnetic pull toward the razor's edge, where order collapses and chaos begins. For him, chaos isn't destruction. It's possibility. It's the one place where the rules dissolve, where new paths can finally be carved. While most panic when structure disintegrates, he thrives, because freedom is found only in the absence of rigid order. He doesn't chase chaos for the adrenaline. He seeks it for the clarity it brings. In chaos, masks fall away, pretenses evaporate, and the raw truth of who people really are is exposed. That raw honesty speaks to him. Order, after all, is often just a polished disguise for control, systems built to keep people predictable and obedient. But chaos strips all of that bare. It doesn't care for status, image, or fragile illusions. It tests whether you adapt or collapse. Sigma males crave that proving ground. Because inside the storm, growth becomes unavoidable. He knows that transformation doesn't happen inside padded comfort zones, it happens on the jagged edge where survival, strength, and soul are tested. That's why he doesn't just endure chaos, he embraces it. To others, chaos is terror. To him, it's the fire that forges him. He doesn't want to merely outlast the storm. He wants to stand inside its core, shaping himself against its brutal force. For most, chaos means collapse. For him, it means evolution. And if given the choice, he would rather die on that unpredictable edge, alive, raw, and real, than spend his days safely locked inside the cage of order. Number 5, secrets that never see the light. For the Sigma male, secrets aren't just fragments of hidden stories or locked-away details, they are the very backbone of his being. In a world obsessed with oversharing, where people parade their lives online for validation, he moves in the opposite direction. The things that matter most to him will never be broadcast. Not because of shame. Not because of fear. But because those truths belong only to him. They are sacred, and exposing them would feel like tearing out a piece of his soul and handing it to strangers who could never comprehend it. Others spill their lives for attention. They confess. They overshare. They narrate every trivial detail, hoping to be seen, hoping to be understood, hoping to feel important. But the Sigma knows a brutal truth: the more you reveal, the weaker you become. He would rather live misunderstood forever than allow his most defining truths to be cheapened by exposure. His secrets are not burdens, they are armor. They grant him an edge, a quiet strength untouched by the need for outside approval. What unsettles people most is that his silence isn't passive, it's deliberate. When he withholds, it isn't indifference. It's defiance. It's his way of saying, this part of me is untouchable. He would rather carry the weight of silence than trade privacy for shallow sympathy or fleeting recognition. His secrets remind him of his sovereignty. No matter how much the world pries, there will always be a part of him that cannot be claimed. To him, secrets are power. Not the manipulative kind, but the raw, unshakable kind that comes from knowing you are never fully owned by anyone or anything. There are chapters of his life that no one will ever read, and that mystery is his fortress. He would die before allowing those pages to be forced open. Because once a secret is spilled, it can never be reclaimed. It becomes public property, ripe for distortion, judgment, or exploitation. That is why the Sigma guards his hidden truths with his life. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Some truths are too sacred, too defining, to ever belong to the world. His secrets are part of his spine, and he would rather break than bend on that. Number 6, the unshakable right to say no. For the Sigma male, the word no is far more than a polite refusal. It is a weapon, a shield, and a declaration of independence all in one. Most people treat no cautiously, softening it to avoid offense or avoiding it altogether because they fear rejection or backlash. But the Sigma doesn't flinch. His no is never casual. It is absolute. When he says it, he means it in a way that can sever ties instantly, burn bridges without hesitation, and completely rewrite the direction of a relationship, job, or situation. This is why people find him so unsettling. Society trains you to compromise, to play nice, to keep doors open, even when those doors lead nowhere. But the Sigma rejects that illusion. He knows that keeping the wrong doors open bleeds your time, drains your energy, and corrodes your soul. His no is brutal because it refuses to bend to shallow politeness. When something isn't right for him, he doesn't stall, doesn't sugarcoat, and doesn't justify. He shuts it down, clean and final, even if it shocks or offends. To him, this isn't cruelty, it's survival. Saying yes out of guilt, fear, or obligation is one of the fastest ways to lose control of your life. He would rather deal with the fallout of scorched earth honesty than live suffocated by someone else's expectations. That's why people call him cold, detached, or ruthless, when in reality, he's simply being uncompromisingly real. His loyalty and energy are reserved only for what he truly believes in, not what he is bullied, manipulated, or sweet-talked into. And here's the paradox: his ironclad no makes his rare yes profoundly powerful. When he agrees, when he commits, when he chooses to stand behind something, it carries immense weight, because everyone knows it wasn't given lightly. His refusals sharpen the value of his acceptance. For the Sigma, the right to say no is non-negotiable. Without it, he is no longer free. A life built on endless compromises is no life at all. He would rather walk alone, with 1,000 bridges burning behind him, than be chained by obligations he never wanted. To the Sigma male, no is not negativity. It is freedom in its rawest, purest form. Number 7, the freedom to walk with shadows. For most people, darkness is something to run from, bury beneath fake smiles, or drown in shallow optimism. The world preaches positive vibes only, as if suffering, rage, grief, and doubt can be filtered away like a bad photo. But a Sigma male rejects that illusion completely. He doesn't just tolerate his shadows, he walks with them as if they were lifelong companions. To him, darkness isn't weakness to be hidden, but raw truth that makes him whole. This is why shallow positivity disgusts him. He can spot it instantly: the forced cheer, the recycled motivational cliches, the hollow optimism people wield to mask emptiness. To him, that is dishonesty in its ugliest form. To deny your darker side is to amputate your own humanity. A Sigma knows the silence of despair, the sting of regret, the ache of grief. But instead of rejecting these truths, he lets them sharpen him. His shadows carve out depth where others remain flat. They remind him he's real in a world addicted to pretending. It's not that he glorifies suffering, it's that he understands its value. Without grief, there is no gratitude. Without fear, no courage. Without darkness, no truth. He'd rather stand knee-deep in his own shadows than float on the surface of a polished, fake world where nothing is real. This makes him dangerous to shallow systems of control. He cannot be manipulated with promises of comfort or happiness because he does not worship light while despising darkness, he embraces both. That balance makes him untouchable. People often mistake this for coldness, cynicism, or detachment. But the reality is that he's one of the few who's fully alive. By walking with his shadows, he is never consumed by them. He doesn't collapse under the weight of what he carries, he uses it as fuel. That's why he speaks less, but every word lands heavy. Why he fights fewer battles, but fights them harder. Why he seems nearly unbreakable. His shadows are not chains, they are armor. And he would rather die than be forced into the shallow light of fake positivity. Because to him, that isn't life, it's performance. Real life is the full spectrum, the laughter, the rage, the scars, and the joy. Only by walking with his shadows can he claim it all as his own. Number 8, conversations that aren't currency. In today's world, conversations are rarely just conversations. Words have become currency. People spend them for attention, trade them for sympathy, or invest them for approval. Every exchange hides an agenda: status seeking, networking, validation. For the Sigma male, this is exhausting. He can feel the transaction behind the words, and it turns even casual talk into something hollow. That's why he values, almost to the point of obsession, the rare conversation that isn't currency. To him, this isn't about profound philosophy or world-shaking revelations. It can be as simple as two people talking without masks, without calculation, without performing. A dialogue where silence isn't awkward, where honesty isn't punished, and where nothing has to be packaged for an audience later. These are the conversations that leave him wired with energy instead of drained. They remind him that real connection still exists, buried under the noise. And because they are so rare, he would die for them. Most people don't talk anymore, they advertise. They brand themselves in real time, adjusting every word to sell an image. Even intimacy has become theater, where confessions are less about relief and more about validation. The Sigma male refuses to play that game. To him, words stripped of sincerity are worse than silence. That's why he's selective with his voice and his circle. He'd rather keep his silence like a shield than waste it on small talk that feels like empty trade. To outsiders, this makes him appear aloof, detached, even arrogant. But the truth is, he's conserving his soul for the moments that matter. Because when he finally engages, when he speaks without walls or performance, it's unforgettable. No bargaining chips, no posturing, no currency. Just raw, unfiltered truth exchanged like fire between two people who know it's real. That's why he guards it so fiercely. In a world where everything is turned into currency, he would fight to the end for the right to one single conversation that feels unbought, unbroken, and undeniably human. Final thoughts. What separates the Sigma male isn't rebellion for rebellion's sake, or mystery for attention. It's his unwavering loyalty to himself. He doesn't need applause, titles, or a spotlight. The things he values are not things the crowd could ever understand. While most chase safety, comfort, and validation, he would rather die protecting the things that can't be bought or faked: his sovereignty, his shadows, his scars, his silence, his exits, and his truth. Every point reveals the same unshakable truth: a Sigma male would rather risk everything than surrender the pieces of himself that make him whole. His freedom isn't negotiable. His mind isn't for sale. His soul isn't for rent. That's why he thrives where others break. Why he remains untouchable when the system tries to cage him. Why his life is a quiet rebellion against everything fake. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this: real strength isn't in how loud you are, how many follow you, or how safe your life looks on paper. Real strength is in choosing your own battles. In keeping your name intact. In walking with your shadows. In leaving when you must. So if the world doesn't understand him, so be it. He wasn't born to be understood. He was born to be free.